This video was created to determine the relationship between the gross domestic product or GDP at market prices and the population of the unemployed labor forces split into two genders of male and female in Ontario over the course of 31 years from 1987 to 2017. We collected our data from the website Statistics Canada. We split our data sets into two stratas, male and female, and used 31 years worth of data ranging from 1987 to 2017. The independent variable in this relationship is the gross domestic product or GDP at market prices, and the dependent variable is the population of the unemployed labor forces that will be split into two genders of male and female.
The unemployment rate is determined by the amount of jobs that are available. In order for a country to provide a wider range of jobs to its labor force, a higher GDP is required. We can assume that a higher GDP can result in a lower rate of unemployment in a country and vice versa.
Gross domestic products is the value of final goods and services produced annually. Ideally, when the price of products and services increase as a result of a high GDP, to keep the economy balanced, the wages and businesses' profit needs to increase so that people are left with a higher disposable income to afford those goods and products. To achieve a higher wage and profit, more jobs need to be available to the labor forces. That will result into a higher rate of employment and consequently a lower rate of unemployment.
Unemployment affects everyone, including those who are employed. Unemployed workers lose wages, resulting in the country losing goods and services that could have been produced, affecting GDP. Those employed also could lose their disposable income, so their purchasing ability, which could lead to layoffs for current employed workers. When workers are let go, it increases the workload for those still employed. Unemployment usually occurs due to companies cutting down on costs, so those workers that are expected to pick up the pace and sudden workload are receiving no compensation.
In regards to GDP and unemployment, economic production and growth have an impact on the economy. For instance, when the economy is healthy, there will regularly be a lower unemployment rate and wage increases as businesses demand labor to meet their developing economy.
To calculate the population of the unemployed labor forces, we combine data from the population of labor forces for the two genders that are over 15 years of age over the course of 31 years per 1,000, with the annual unemployment rate percentage from 1987 to 2017.
The histogram for the population of unemployed male labor forces almost resembles a bell-shaped curve. However, this distribution is not perfectly normal. This distribution is negatively or left skewed. The histogram for female unemployed population demonstrates a similar shape to a bell curve, but the distribution is not perfectly normal, so this means that the distribution is positively or right skewed.
Using only our dependent variable, the unemployed population, these calculations show that the male labor forces in Ontario have a higher unemployment rate on average. Based on their definition, it is preferable to use the mean instead of the median, since the mean, which is the average of all data, is a representation of all the data. We can see that the median of the unemployed population is higher in females. Since the median only represents the middle value in a strata, it cannot be used to interpret the whole strata. So we cannot conclude that a higher median will lead to a higher population of unemployment for females.
The presence of outliers can be observed in our box and whisker plot. This is indicated with the fact that these points are outside of the inner quartile range. Ideally, a normal distribution would have no outlier and the mean would be equal to the median. With the presence of outliers, the distribution is skewed and mean will no longer be equal to the median. If the outliers are bigger than the fourth quartile, the mean will be bigger than the median, and if the outliers are smaller than the first quartile, the mean will be lower than the median. Outliers can indicate errors in collection data, such as improper scales, errors when collecting data, and measurements.
The correlation coefficient R indicates the relationship between the dependent and the independent variable. In this case, GDP and the population of unemployed labor forces. The range of values for the correlation coefficient cannot exceed 1.0. When the value of the correlation coefficient is positive, it represents that as one dataset increases, the other one increases as well, and vice versa. We can see that the trend line is generally increasing throughout the entire dataset. The correlation coefficient cannot go below negative 1.0. This number demonstrates that as one dataset increases, the also other decreases. In this correlation, the trend line is generally decreasing. The closer our value is to 1 or -1 is the more our scatter plot would resemble a straight line.
We found that for male workers, as the population of unemployed workers increases, the GDP in that year has increased as well, due to the fact that the correlation coefficient between the dependent and the independent variable is a positive value. For female workers, as the population of unemployed workers increases, the GDP in that year has decreased due to the fact that the correlation coefficient between the dependent and the independent variable is a negative value. The reason why the value of our correlation for males and females are not very close to 1 or -1 could have been due to outliers. Outliers can affect the value of the correlation coefficient and skew the results. From our findings, we were able to determine that the relationship between GDP at market prices and the population of the male and female unemployed labor forces do not have a direct relationship with each other. This assumption was made after observing the relationship between GDP and the male and female unemployed population on a scatter plot. However, other factors can play into why our data and results may be skewed, such as the fact that a straight trend line might not fit the curved data present in the scatter plot, as well as other factors affecting a country's GDP beside the unemployment population.